Hey all, Taves here, back playing some more Planet Zoo, and welcome back to Tiguidou Zoo. So in this episode we are working alongside the deer habitat, the glade. If you remember, that's up towards the night house back there. We're right along the edge of the map here, and we've got this little portion, this little parcel of land here that we're going to be squeezing some stuff into. And as you've seen from the little intro there in the title and the thumbnail, there's going to be a bear habitat, grizzly bear habitat going on. This is going to be the first of two parts. So what we've got to do first of all is clear some of these trees and make some space. Okay, so yoink, out go the trees. And what I want to make sure I'm doing with this is I want to have, you see I've got a sort of path all around this section. This is actually ends up being a kind of intersection of several different paths. We've got the path coming down from the night house. We've got the path going on towards farm life and the wolverine habitat and all of that sort of thing. So I actually wanted to make sure I had a means for the bears to be able to go underneath the path there. So the main feature of this habitat, or at least this first episode of this habitat, as you've seen from the title, is this cave. What I was really trying to achieve with this, and it took me quite a few different iterations, and let me know what you think by the end of it, was the aesthetic that it felt like it was still man-made. I think it's one of the things that you're always trying to do in Planet Zoo is have things look almost sort of deliberately fake. So the faux rocks and things are great at that, but actually you have to be really careful when you're using the terrain tool and you're using the sort of terrain rocks, that it doesn't look like it's real, if that would make sense. So you're trying to create something that feels like it's faux reality, if that makes sense. So it feels more like a zoo could actually do it. So I think this is probably the most I've ever used the terrain tools in this habitat. Or in this whole game, in my whole 5,000 hours or whatever I'm at with this game, because I did a lot of terrain stamp work, as you can see me putting in blocks, and then if you watch, I take them back out again. So it's a good way to get thin slivers of land. Because what I wanted is I'm trying to maximise the amount of space here. So I had this picture in my head that would be really cool for the bear to still be able to walk on top of the cave. I mean, you see how we kind of end up making the most of that as we go on. Obviously, it's really tricky to get the path sort of, nice gentle slope down into that. But what I was trying to do, as you can see me cutting a hole there, I've sort of had this picture in my head there already of I want this sort of skylight where potentially the bears can be on top of the cave as well as inside the cave, if that makes sense. But what we're trying to achieve is that the guests are in that cave as well. So here we go. So I've actually pushed the cave deeper now, and I'm bringing the path into it. So yeah, guest and bear in cave at the same time, but obviously not occupying the same space. So yeah, I've put that little kind of bubble of the path in there, and I'm pushing the terrain around a lot. Actually, it ended up being quite sort of I guess kind of like terrain sculpting in this. So just a combination of, you can see me doing most of the heavy lifting with the stamp. So I'm pushing a hole in now. This is actually where the bears are going to be. But there's also a lot of, you see me just kind of using the really low settings on the terrain brushes, and then pushing and pulling, because I'm trying to get the land to be quite thin here, because I don't want it to be too big. I want to be able to, as I said, I want to be able to have grass, and I want to be able to have the bears walk up above and come inside the cave. So it still looks a real mess there, but sort of slowly starting to paint all that back in again. I have to say, I do think this is one of those things that, because I'm using the free build mod, and that's the only mod I'm using in the game. The free build mod allows you to manipulate the terrain around paths much easier, so you don't get obstructed. If you want to, you can actually pull the terrain right over the top of the path. So what that allows me to do, so I'm pretty sure I wouldn't even be able to move some of this from around the path. So kind of keeps, you can see I keep sculpting this in, and now I'm bringing the barrier in. So you can see behind, sort of back and to the left of the screen, we've got a hole there. That's my picture is here, is that's actually going to be, this cave is going to function as both where the bears can come and sleep, although it's not going to end up being the only place they can sleep once I've finished the habitat, but it's also going to be the way that the keeper comes in and out. So I've now got my kind of two paths in, the guest path, and actually I think I ended up changing the guest path slightly, and now I'm putting in some, kind of experimenting with some rocks and things. As I said, kind of perfect for this stuff are the faux rocks, because they're good enough, but they don't look like it's something that's like geologically formed, or that obviously, if you can imagine, if a zoo was to really use huge, great big boulders, and they do this obviously at times, but just the logistics of moving huge, great big real rocks around is so much more complicated than moving these faux rocks. Obviously, these faux rocks are supposed to be more like, I don't know, plaster, or just lighter weight materials. So there's again another example where FreeBuild allows me to move that terrain much closer in, so I can create a really tight space. This is the sort of thing actually, and I think how I've explained to myself that I'm okay using FreeBuild is that these are things that you could achieve in the game, just in the vanilla game, but they would take you just a lot longer to do. And so I'm sort of letting myself use that mod in order just to kind of justify just a bit of time saving. Hopefully you will appreciate that I take ages over these habitats anyway, so anything that speeds me up I think is I'm okay with. So yeah, lots of brushing in, just gently pulling that terrain in. I'm trying not to make sure that I'm making it too thin, so sometimes I'm pulling on that side so I can push on the other side and thin the land up a lot. So then we've got the rough shape now, so you can see that the vet is in there, and we've got the path coming off of the main path that people can descend to, just filling in some of this space, just again using the terrain brushes. Actually, by this stage I'm quite happy with the way that path looks as well. It's come down quite nice and gently, not too rough on the for wheelchair access and stuff like that. And now you can see the sort of two spaces have started to shape out. So we've got this bit with where the guests can feel like they're part of the cave, but are not obviously in danger. And I want this slightly to feel, the aesthetic of this bit to be slightly different to actually the bit that the bears occupy. So we use some of the rustic, can't remember what these are called, rustic wall pieces. These are really great. I think they came in the Twilight pack. These are really handy actually, because you can use them in all sorts of different colours. One of the things that's happening there, and this is sort of design, one of those little like happy accidents, Bob Ross moments that happens here, is you can see that because I'm coming around on a curve with those, the pattern doesn't quite work. The tessellation of that doesn't work. So you'll see that ends up creating a little design decision in a minute. As I said, I want some natural light in here. This is obviously, we're above the cave now, and this is potentially an area that the bears can be. So a sort of double, kind of dual aspect of this idea was that I wanted natural light to come into the space, but I also thought it'd be really cool if you were a guest in that cave and the bear was actually on top of the, walking across the top of that window. And I have seen them do that a few times. If I've got a screenshot, I'll put it up in there. So yeah, that little window, I guess that sort of, I don't know what you'd call that, kind of little circular window, really works quite well. And then I just want to kind of get in some of this, a bit more of the kind of cavey feel into this. And this is that design decision. So because I've got that broken pattern and the walls don't quite tessellate, if you look, the rocks don't quite line up, I'm thinking I can use these pieces to kind of hide some of that up, just break up the edges and the joins a little bit, so that's not quite so noticeable. That's why I'm doing that. But also I want the feeling of I want the feeling for the guests to be that they feel like they're in the cave. So some of that kind of those sort of stalactite pieces and things are obviously going to be continued in the bit that the bear's going to be in. So kind of just giving a little bit of a nod to that so that you feel like you're, I guess it's sort of an immersive thing, right? Here's the glass piece going in. So this is obviously the thing that's going to protect you as a guest from the bears themselves, but give you a nice, good view. of using a combination of things there. If you don't know that you can do that, actually, it's surprising that quite a lot of people don't know that you can do this, but you can use the posts. So you could actually have the barrier. So obviously I've got the glass barrier there, but I'm replacing the posts themselves with the posts from a different barrier. I do that quite a lot actually in Tiguidou. So yeah, starting to come together, the viewing point. I'll talk more actually a little bit later about the struggles of getting guests to actually look through glass. It's one of those things that is really frustrating, but I'll let you in on a little tip for how you can get around that sort of thing towards the end of the video. Quite often guests won't do exactly what you want them to do, and you kind of have to force them into particular positions. It's one of those things that's like about the game where you can have a really interesting view, but if there is a really like more easy position for a guest to view an animal, they will take that one rather than the potentially more interesting one. So you saw me just putting a little bit of the barrier out there just to get a bit more of that, bit more of the kind of the lay of the land. Obviously, as I said, this is a 2-part episode, so you're not going to see the rest of the habitat yet. Going to see more of the kind of aesthetics of this inner space. So I think that's all starting to come together, and the light is actually really great in here at this stage. It is one of those slightly challenging things that when you're using the natural terrain to try and keep it feeling fake, if that makes sense, rather than too natural. Right, I'm now building myself a new build set. So if you've watched Tiguidou for a while, you'll see that I've done this a whole bunch of times before. I'm building myself a little kit, what I call a little build kit, where I put together a number of pieces that I can use to create my own buildings and custom buildings. And then by having that kit, I don't have to recreate the buildings every time from scratch. I can keep the aesthetic of that building the same. So you will actually, I think this is the first time you're seeing this kit, but you will see this kit used in a bunch of Backstage staff buildings. And we're creating this one in particular as the Backstage access for the bear habitat. So there we go. We've sort of got the rough palette there starting to work. And I'm adding in, I've already created like a blank wall piece, and I'm now creating what the palette object for a doorway would look like. So we've got the bones of it, and we sort of copy it over, and then I'm actually kind of trying to make sure that this door is slightly recessed into that space. So just pulling out a bunch of these pieces. You can see I've also done the inner part of the wall already as well, so I want the inner aesthetic to be slightly different, using the plank pieces on the outside and actually twilight pieces I think as well on the outside, but also on the inside I want it to kind of feel a bit more sterile, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So it's all kind of walled out. I'm using the plastic pieces on the inside, but it doesn't really matter at the moment. I don't actually end up creating anything with this building, or the inside of this building. I've finished the exterior of this building in this episode, but actually haven't done anything with the interior yet. I haven't really massively decided what I'm doing with the interior on this build. We will do, once we finish this habitat, there will be a bit of a tour around of this space. Yeah, just starting to finish this off so you can see. I thought I'd leave this in actually sort of longer bit of content than I usually would for building of these kits, just so you can see what I'm doing is like, build one piece and then I copy that, and then I've got like 2 variations of the same door, which means I can build slight variations of buildings without having to start back from scratch. So it's again, if you've watched my channel for a while, you'll have seen me do this a number of times in Tiguidou and in Zimba and anything else I'm building. So I wanted to just have this little, I guess just a feature really, just like this little archway over the door in here. So just to give it a little bit more of an interesting aesthetic, just joining those up. And then, so I've got my door piece now. I've pushed that door piece back there, and I'm taking the same thing and I'm like, okay, well, now I want to make a window variant. So I want to make my own custom windows. And doing what you usually do with these is, just choose on what the size of window you want. I don't want this to be something that people can look through. So again, this is all really, because this is a staff building, I'm always going to use these pieces for staff buildings. It doesn't really massively matter what goes on here. I could actually have just used the emissive glass here. But yeah, once I've created one of those pieces, then obviously I can copy it over as many times and make as many variants of the same building, but with the same aesthetic. So there's one window done, and then I copy it over and create the others. You reuse my little my sort of I guess what would you call that, like an arch piece, my little kind of, I guess, a sort of dormer piece. And as I said, I don't want people to be able to see through this, so I did end up using the emissive glass, and then ended up putting all of these kind of blind pieces in there, putting a couple of little details on the outside, little brackets and some features. I think this ends up getting some hanging baskets. So this is the sort of end of the process. You can see now I've got a whole bunch of different, I've got corner pieces, I've got doors, etc. That really quickly allows me to create my own building. All of that is achieved by keeping it on the grid. And you can see now I'm like a couple of different, I tried something out in the space and decided I needed it to be slightly bigger, and then I've created that variant. So the trick is there, all of that, I mean, it's a lot of work up front, but I've now got a kit that I can use over and over again, and I can use that for lots of different staff buildings, and it will generally overall create the aesthetic of sort of consistency across the zoo, but without having to actually have exactly the same building repeated. They'll all feel like they're of the same kind of theme, if you like. And it's a really good way of just kind of saving yourself a little bit of time. So this is, as I said, this is going to be where the keepers come in to actually go inside to the bears. Obviously, this is a small door, so this is not how you'd get a bear in and out of the habitat. You're not going to see that in this episode, but it will be covered in another episode. So we're getting there now. So path is coming down, putting some fencing in. You can see I've done some of the foliage work and things. As to the left of the screen there, I've done a bit of decoration. Just trying to blend this all together. Obviously don't want kids and this stuff climbing on this rock. There is going to be a fence obviously above this, so it's not like they'll be able to climb their way into the bear habitat. That would be a problem. But yeah, just putting some of this fence down. And again, this is one of those things I've used. This is sort of a palette object of Tiguidou. So this is something that I've used. This particular fence is something I've used in a whole bunch of places before. So again, just starts to bring it all together as a theme, I guess. Bit more foliage, just trying to kind of soften this rock off. And then again, you've probably seen me do this before, but I don't think I've actually ever shown you at speed how I'm creating these little geometric artworks. So what I have got there is I found a picture of a bear online in a sort of geometric pattern, and then I'm following all the lines with the bracket piece. You see, this is going fast, really, really fast. I think this is at like 1200 speed or something. So hopefully the sort of flashing of the gizmo is not it's not too annoying. So let's trace it all out, and you can see I've done a slightly different pose there, and then fill all the colours in with the font pieces. Like, this is really, really time consuming, actually quite therapeutic, but takes a long time, and these two came out really well. So I thought I'd show you a bit more of this process, because again, if you have been watching Tiguidou for a while, you'll have seen that I've done this in a number of habitats now. I think the first one was the capybaras. I did this, so it's part of their sort of education signs that, you know, they've got these, a little bit of just a little bit of a theming thing that all over the zoo where there are. It's not for every animal. I don't think I did it for the penguins. I think there's a few that I haven't done it for. The seals I haven't done it for. But it's supposed to just be, a little bit more of an aesthetic thing. As I said, they're supposed to be sort of educational signs. Again, they take a long time, so they take a long time. I will upload these. Likewise, with the build kits and stuff, they will end up on the workshop at some point. All of those, probably the geometric stuff. I think I've already uploaded a bunch already. Okay, so now we're actually inside the cave itself, or the bears part of the cave. As I said earlier, I really want to make sure this feels like it's fake and not like it's a naturally formed cave. So these steel girders are just a bit of a hint at that, and deliberately keep them in a position where they're visible to the guests, just so it doesn't feel like we're supposed to think it's something that naturally formed here. The stalactites and all those pieces are all of these pieces that we got. Again, I think we got these in the Twilight piece. The Twilight DLC. All of these like really work well for this sort of stuff, because again, they're a little bit over the top, and so they just kind of do tick that box of it looking all looking a bit fake. So yeah, use those all over the place. Those lights are actually supposed to look like they're big heaters, so I've gone sort of red with those. And then putting a load of moss out, all that sort of thing. Just trying to soften it off, trying to make it, again, trying to hide as much of that, the natural kind of mud there. Again, not loads of details in this, but I think it all comes together really well. It just ends up being a nice feature. And the sort of thing that you'd be like, I mean, I think if I was a kid, I'd be really excited to look at, what a bear looks like in the cave. And because this is where the keepers come in, the keepers will quite often feed them in here. I've obviously put bedding down and stuff as well, so they come in and out. Made sure that the keeper gate is not visible to the guests when they're looking in. So yeah, that's this first episode. There's going to be, actually I played around with putting steps in. I think I took them out actually after a while. But next episode is obviously going to be the rest of the bear habitat. I'm thinking it's going to be done in 2 episodes, I hope. I've actually done a lot more of this by the time I'm recording, but this episode ended up being quite long already, so I thought I'd cut it into 2. Yeah, next episode is going to be the rest of the habitat, and there is also going to be another shelter for them. So I hope you've enjoyed this one, guys. As I said, hopefully the next one won't be too far off. And I'm really, really enjoying playing Tiguidou at the moment and playing Planet Zoo in general. Hope you've enjoyed that one. Do let me know what you think of it in the comments, or drop me a like, and I will get back to you soon. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And my name is Toves, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take it easy.